Hello there, this is Puppy, and welcome to the Moral Dilemma of the Week. As usual, before we get to this week's Moral Dilemma, let's go over last week's Moral Dilemma and see what its consensus was. In case you don't remember, last week's Moral Dilemma was, if a man threatens to kill a woman, unless you beat her to within an inch of her life, would you do it? The general consensus was, we should go after the man doing the threatening and ensure that he never does it again. I only got one yes or no response, or at least that I remember, and it said that we should beat her. As for me, I'd say we shouldn't. I'm not a consequentialist, as you will notice throughout this series. And I believe that assault is intrinsically immoral. Though, if I let myself go out of the box, I'd agree with either the consensus or the guy who said we should carry her to safety because I actually forgot to forbid that when I constructed the dilemma. Now, on to this week's moral dilemma. Imagine that humanity reaches a space-faring level of technology. Imagine that we go off planet exploring, and we discover an inhabited planet. This planet had a civilization. Said civilization was peaceful in the same way we are now, namely they aren't really, but they aren't like in total war or something. But then there was a vampire apocalypse. And now the infected control everything, keeping what's left of the uninfected in farms whose conditions are not like hellish, but not necessarily quite up to snuff with our idea of what a sapient being is entitled to. Now, obviously, the alien vampires use the alien non-vampires for blood, but they also occasionally infect one. And this is what they do instead of reproducing in order to maintain stable population levels in their civilization of the infected. And I want to emphasize, by the way, that this civilization of the infected, other than the fact that it's made out of what are essentially vampires, is unremarkable in every way. If we didn't know what they ate, how they were reproducing, or what they were keeping in those farms, we wouldn't be able to tell the difference between them and us at about the same technological stage. Speaking of things I also want to emphasize that the infected do not do this out of malice, but because if they didn't, they would have no food and would die, and they would be unable to replenish their populations, and their civilization would go away. Because, like all other characters in this type of moral dilemma, guess what? The uninfected are unwilling to donate their blood voluntarily to the alien vampires because they consider the alien vampires to be abominations. I know, what an original concept for a moral dilemma. One person needs help from a second person, but that second person is unwilling to help the first person, so can the first person force the second person to help them? I've literally done it once before myself in a reptilian open letter. But I do think this is at least a new situation fitting into that paradigm. Now, another thing to make special note of, don't worry, this is the last one. The infected do not buy and sell the uninfected or the right to use their products, and they don't consider them to be or treat them as though they were property, other than holding them in farms against their will, I suppose. But they don't think of them as property or as slaves, or even as being intrinsically unequal to themselves. Now here's the question. We're sufficiently advanced that we could effortlessly overthrow the infected, but should we? Should we free the uninfected, causing them to live lives befitting sapient beings, but making the infected, all of whom are innocent beings who have had the need to drink uninfected blood hoisted upon them through no fault of their own, starve to death? Please leave your answer in the comment section or in a video response. Rate this video and subscribe. See you next time.